The red dust of Mars swirled around Dr. Sarah Chen's boots as she made her way across the ancient river. 20 years of Mars colonization had taught humanity much about survival on the hostile planet, but nothing could have prepared them for what lay beneath the surface of Olympus Mons. Base, this is Chen. We're picking up some unusual readings from the deep scan, she reported, adjusting her suit's external sensors. The readouts didn't make sense. Energy signatures that shouldn't exist in a dead world. Copy that, Dr. Chen. Can you verify the source? The voice of mission control crackled through her helmet speakers. The timing couldn't have been more crucial. Back on Earth, the resource wars had reached a breaking point. 15 billion humans stretched the planet's capacity to its limits. The Mars colonies were humanity's insurance policy, but they were struggling to become self-sufficient. Sarah's team had been searching for underground water deposits when their instruments detected something else entirely. As she approached the anomaly's epicenter, her handheld scanner's readings went off the scale. "Jackson, bring the seismic imaging equipment," she called to her assistant. Thomas Jackson, a geologist from the Australian outpost, hurried over with the bulky device. Together, they began mapping what lay beneath their feet. Hours later, the first images emerged. Hidden 200 meters below the Martian surface was a perfectly spherical chamber, 30 meters in diameter. The energy signature emanated from its center. "This is it," Sarah whispered to herself. "This is what we've been looking for." The discovery sparked the largest excavation project in Mars colonial history. Teams worked around the clock, carefully removing layer after layer of rock. Earth's governments, usually mired in political squabbles, united in their funding and support of the project. Everyone understood the stakes. 3 months later, Sarah stood before the exposed entrance to the chamber. The door, if you could call it that, was made of a material that defied analysis. Smooth and black, it absorbed all light that touched it. "Final checks complete," announced Dr. Viktor Petrov, the team's synorchaeologist. "The chamber is stable, and atmospheric readings are normal." Sarah took a deep breath. "Let's make history." The door opened with surprising ease, responding to human touch as if it had been waiting for them. Inside, suspended in the center of the chamber, floated a device about the size of a basketball. It pulsed with a soft, blue light. But it wasn't the device itself that changed everything. It was what it contained. Data. Vast amounts of it, stored in crystalline structures that made Earth's most advanced quantum computers look primitive by comparison. As the team began to decipher the information, they realized they had found something beyond their wildest dreams. The technical specifications for a revolutionary form of space travel. The ancient aliens who had left this gift had mastered the art of folding space itself. Over the next year, Earth's brightest minds worked to understand and adapt the alien technology. They called it the Fold Drive, and it promised to shrink journeys of light years into mere days. Dr. Chen led the theoretical physics team, while engineers around the world began construction on humanity's first faster-than-light vessel. They named it the CSS Prometheus, CSS standing for Combined Space Service, humanity's unified space force. But even as humanity celebrated this breakthrough, Sarah couldn't shake a feeling of unease. The alien data included star charts, navigation protocols, and coordination systems, everything needed to join an interstellar community. Yet one question remained unanswered. Why had this technology been left for them to find? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. As the Prometheus prepared for its maiden voyage, deep space monitoring stations picked up something approaching from the direction of Alpha Centauri. Multiple somethings. Sarah stood in the Mars Control Center, watching the long-range sensor data with growing concern. The objects were moving fast, faster than anything humanity had ever observed, and they were definitely artificial. "How long until they reach our solar system?" she asked the monitoring team. "At their current speed, 3 months," came the reply. Admiral James Chen, Sarah's brother and the commanding officer of the Prometheus, joined her at the display. Then we have 3 months to get the Prometheus ready, he said firmly. The whole point of the Prometheus project was to reach for the stars. Looks like the stars are reaching back. Sarah nodded, but she couldn't help wondering if humanity was ready for what was coming. The alien artifact had given them the key to the galaxy, but had it also painted a target on Earth's back? As she watched the construction feeds from Earth orbit, where the massive form of the Prometheus neared completion, Sarah realized that humanity had passed a point of no return. They had stepped onto the galactic stage, and there would be no going back. The Prometheus represented everything humanity had achieved: their technology, their unity, their determination to survive and thrive. Whatever was coming from Alpha Centauri would find that humans were no longer confined to their cradle. They were ready to stand among the stars. Admiral Chen placed a hand on his sister's shoulder. "We'll be ready," he said, as if reading her thoughts. "Whatever's out there, they're about to learn that humanity isn't just another primitive species. We're something else entirely." Sarah smiled, remembering the words inscribed on the Prometheus's hull: "Per aspera ad astra," through hardships to the stars. Humanity had certainly faced its share of hardships, but they had never let that stop them. As the first signals from the approaching vessels began to reach their sensors, humanity prepared itself for first contact. The Prometheus would be ready, and with it, the future of their species would be forever changed. The artifact on Mars had given them a chance. Now it was up to humanity to prove they deserved it. The CS of Prometheus hung in high Earth orbit, its crystalline full-drive arrays gleaming in the sunlight. At 2 kilometers long, it was the largest vessel humanity had ever constructed. But Admiral James Chen knew that size alone wouldn't guarantee success in what was to come. "Final system check complete," reported Commander Maria Santos, his executive officer. "All stations report ready." The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, but James could sense their tension. The alien vessels were now just 2 weeks away from entering the solar system, and humanity still hadn't decoded their transmissions. "What's the latest from the linguistics team?" James asked, turning to his communications officer. Lieutenant Raj Patel shook his head. "Dr. Chen's team is still working on it, sir. The signals follow patterns similar to those found in the Mars Artifacts database, but there are significant variations." Down in the ship's linguistics lab, Sarah Chen and her team had been working around the clock. The alien transmissions were becoming stronger, but their meaning remained elusive. She stared at the cascading symbols on her holographic display until her eyes burned. "There's something familiar about this," she muttered, comparing the transmissions to the artifact's data. "It's like they're speaking the same language." But her thought was interrupted by a sudden shift in the signal pattern. New data began streaming in, and this time it was crystal clear. "They've switched to the artifact's base language," she breathed, watching the translation algorithm finally begin making sense of the messages. Her excitement turned to dread as she read the first decoded transmission. "James," she called her brother over the command channel. "We have a translation. You need to see this." The message was brief but unambiguous. "Unauthorized species detected accessing restricted technology. Prepare for evaluation and containment." Within hours, the alien fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. 12 vessels, each larger than the Prometheus, arranged themselves in an attack formation. "They're not here for peaceful contact," James announced to his crew. Battle stations. The Prometheus's shields hummed to life as weapons systems powered up. Throughout the solar system, defense platforms and smaller military vessels moved into predetermined positions. Humanity had hoped for peace but prepared for war. A new transmission arrived. "Your species has accessed technology beyond your evolutionary stage. Surrender the full drive technology and submit to quarantine, or face immediate termination." The aliens identify themselves as the Consortium, self-appointed guardians of civilizational development. They claimed that allowing primitive species access to advanced technology inevitably led to disaster. President Sofia Martinez's response from Earth was immediate. Humanity will not surrender its right to technological advancement. We are prepared to defend ourselves. The consortium's response came in the form of energy beams that lit up space. 3 defense platforms vaporized instantly, their atomic bonds simply coming apart. Multiple hostile launches detected, called out the tactical officer. They're targeting major population centers on Earth. Intercept course, James ordered, and the Prometheus surged forward. The ship's full drive wasn't just for faster-than-light travel. Sarah's team had discovered it could be used to create localized distortions in spacetime. As the alien weapons approached Earth, the Prometheus generated a series of microfolds, redirecting the energy beams into empty space. The consortium ships paused, apparently surprised by this application of their technology. They didn't expect us to have mastered it so quickly, Sarah observed from her station. The artifact must have been a test, one they didn't expect us to pass so soon. The battle that followed proved that humanity's innovative use of the fold drive had caught the consortium off guard. While their ships were more powerful, the Prometheus demonstrated maneuvers that should have been impossible, using space itself as both shield and weapon. But the aliens' technological advantage was overwhelming. For every attack, the Prometheus deflected, 2 more got through. Earth's orbital defenses were being systematically destroyed. We can't keep this up indefinitely, Commander Santos reported, as another series of impacts rocked the ship. Shield integrity down to 40%. James studied the tactical display, looking for any advantage. The consortium ships maintained perfect formation, their attacks coordinated with mathematical precision, almost too perfect. Sarah, he called to his sister, what if we use the fold drive to create a resonance cascade? Like ripples in a pond, but through space-time itself. Sarah's fingers flew over her console as she ran the calculations. It's possible, but we'd have to get much closer to their formation. And if we make a mistake, we don't have a choice, James decided. All hands, prepare for close quarters engagement. The Prometheus dove toward the alien fleet, taking heavy fire. Armor plates buckled and systems failed, but the massive ship pressed on. At point-blank range, James gave the order. Initiate fold drive sequence Alpha 7. The space around the Prometheus began to twist and ripple. The consortium ships, their systems linked in perfect synchronization, suddenly found their formation disrupted by waves of distorted spacetime. Their perfectly coordinated attacks began to falter. It's working, Sarah exclaimed. Their linked systems are amplifying the cascade effect. 2 consortium ships collided as their navigation systems failed to compensate for the spatial distortions. Another spun out of control, its weapons firing randomly into space. But the victory was short-lived. The remaining consortium vessels adjusted their tactics, switching to individual control systems. A concentrated blast hit the Prometheus's engineering section, causing catastrophic damage. Fold drive is offline, Santos reported grimly. We're running on emergency power. The consortium ships regrouped, preparing for a final attack. On the Prometheus's bridge, James Chen made a decision that would change the course of the war. All hands, abandon ship, he ordered. Get to the escape pods. Sarah, get that data to Earth. They need to know what we've learned about their weaknesses. James, no, Sarah protested, but her brother's expression stopped her. That's an order, Dr. Chen. Humanity needs you more than it needs this ship. As the evacuation began, James Chen stood on his bridge, watching the consortium ships approach. The Prometheus had struck the first blow in humanity's fight for survival, but the real battle was just beginning. The war for humanity's right to exist among the stars had begun, and it would take more than technology to win it. It would take everything that made humans unique, their creativity, their adaptability, and their unwavering determination to survive. Beneath the Rocky Mountains, in humanity's deepest military installation, Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the combined military leadership of Earth. The loss of the Prometheus and her brother still haunted her, but there was no time for grief. The consortium had withdrawn to the outer solar system. giving humanity a brief respite to prepare. The consortium's weakness, Sarah explained, gesturing to the holographic display, is their perfect synchronization. They think like one entity, making them incredibly efficient but predictable. We can use that against them. General Maya Rodriguez, Earth Defense Force Commander, leaned forward. How do we exploit this weakness when they're technologically superior in every way? Sarah smiled for the first time in weeks. Because they don't understand how humans think. Look at this data from the Prometheus engagement. The hologram shifted to show the battle's final moments. When we created those spatial distortions, their ships took exactly 2.3 seconds to adapt. Not one ship reacted differently. They're like a supercomputer, powerful but inflexible. In the 3 months since the initial battle, humanity had been busy. The Mars Artifacts database had revealed more secrets, but not in the way the consortium expected. Humans' greatest advantage wasn't in the technology itself, but in how they used it. We've developed something new, Sarah announced, nodding to her colleague, Dr. Marcus Wong. We call it the Chaos Protocol. Marcus stepped forward, his artificial eyes glowing softly as he interfaced with the facility systems. The hologram changed to show a new ship design, smaller than the Prometheus, but more aggressive in appearance. The consortium expects us to use the fold drive technology in prescribed ways, Marcus explained. Instead, we've basically turned it inside out. These new ships don't create precise spatial folds. They generate controlled chaos in spacetime itself. The assembled leaders watched as simulations showed the new vessels in action. Where the consortium created perfect, mathematical distortions in space, these ships produced unpredictable ripples and eddies that defied conventional physics. It's like comparing classical music to jazz, Sarah added. They can only play the notes as written. We're improvising. Production began immediately. Around the world, hidden shipyards worked tirelessly to build the new vessels. They were called the Trickster class, and they represented everything that made humanity different from the consortium. But the most significant breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a quantum consciousness researcher, made a discovery while studying the consortium's communication patterns. Their shared consciousness is both a strength and a vulnerability. Yuki explained to Sarah during a late-night research session. They've sacrificed individual creativity for collective efficiency. They literally cannot think outside their established patterns. This revelation led to the development of electronic warfare systems designed to inject chaos into the consortium's neural networks. If their perfect synchronization was their strength, humanity would make it their weakness. The first test came sooner than expected. A consortium probe penetrated the inner solar system, approaching Mars. 2 prototype trickster ships, Coyote and Raven, moved to intercept. Captain Diana Patel of the Coyote watched the probe's approach. Remember, Sarah's voice came through the command channel. Don't think like them. Think like humans. The probe followed a mathematically perfect course, its sensors scanning methodically. The trickster ships responded with maneuvers that would have made any conventional pilot sick: random accelerations, illogical course changes, and spatial distortions that seemed to serve no purpose. The probe's reactions became increasingly erratic as its algorithms failed to predict the human ship's movements. When it finally opened fire, its weapons struck empty space where the tricksters had been microseconds before. Now, Diana ordered. Both ships activated their chaos generators simultaneously. The space around the probe transformed into a maelstrom of conflicting spatial distortions. Unable to compute a logical response, the probe self-destructed. The engagement lasted less than 5 minutes, but it proved the concept. Humanity had found its edge. Back on Earth, Sarah presented the results to the Defense Council. The consortium's greatest strength is their unity of thought and action, she explained. But that's also their greatest weakness. They've forgotten how to handle the unexpected, the irrational, the creative. Plans were quickly developed to exploit this advantage. The remaining full-drive technology was modified to incorporate elements of chaos theory and quantum uncertainty. Training programs emphasized improvisation and unconventional thinking. But the consortium wasn't idle. Long-range sensors detected more ships arriving from deep space, joining the fleet at the system's edge. They were learning, adapting their strategies based on the probe's destruction. "They're coming," General Rodriguez announced during an emergency session. "Full invasion fleet. Estimated arrival in 2 weeks." Sarah stood at the window of the mountain facility, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. Somewhere out there, the consortium was preparing to eliminate what they saw as an upstart species that dared to break their rules. They didn't understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology or their weapons. It was in their ability to think differently, to break rules, to find solutions where none seemed to exist. "James would have loved this," she whispered, touching the commander's insignia she now wore. Her brother had given his life to buy humanity time, and they had used that time well. The coming battle would determine whether humanity deserved its place among the stars. But for the first time since the Prometheus fell, Sarah felt genuine hope. The consortium was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous opponent isn't the strongest or the most advanced. It's the one who refuses to play by your rules. As night fell over the Rockies, humanity's new fleet prepared for war. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the consortium couldn't comprehend: the power of human unpredictability. The real question wasn't whether they could win, but whether the consortium was ready for what humanity was about to unleash. The void between Mars and Jupiter erupted with spatial distortions as humanity's trickster fleet moved into position. 30 ships, each a testament to human ingenuity, formed a seemingly random pattern that would have given any conventional tactical eye a headache. Commander Diana Pottle stood on the bridge of the EDF Coyote, now humanity's flagship. The tactical display showed the approaching consortium fleet, over 100 vessels moving in perfect, geometric formations. "All ships, execute Operation Wildcard," Diana ordered. Her voice was steady, masking the weight of responsibility she felt. Earth's fate rested on this battle's outcome. Dr. Sarah Chin's voice came through the command channel from Mars Control. "Remember, their predictability is their weakness. Every ship must act independently. Give them too many variables to process." The consortium fleet entered weapons range, their energy weapons charging with familiar precision. But this time, humanity was ready. "Chaos Protocol active," reported Lieutenant Commander Jack O'Neill, the Coyote's tactical officer. "Spatial distortion fields at maximum entropy." The space between the two fleets became a quantum nightmare. The trickster ship's chaos generators created a zone where conventional physics began to break down. Light bent in impossible ways, sensor readings became unreliable, and even time itself seemed to hiccup and stutter. The consortium's first volley missed entirely, their targeting computers unable to compensate for the unpredictable spatial distortions. Their perfect formation began to show signs of strain as individual ships struggled to maintain synchronization. "They're trying to rewrite their combat algorithms in real time," Sarah observed, monitoring the battle from Mars. "But they can't adapt fast enough to our random patterns." Diana watched as her fleet executed maneuvers that looked like madness, but were actually carefully choreographed chaos. Each trickster ship operated on its own initiative, using tactics that ranged from the unconventional to the seemingly insane. The EDF Raven performed a series of microfolds that left afterimages, confusing consortium targeting systems. The EDF Loki created a cascade of spatial anomalies that caused 3 enemy ships to fire on their own allies. The EDF Phoenix, named in honor of the Prometheus, dove straight through an enemy formation, its chaos field disrupting their neural networks. But the consortium was far from defeated. Their superior numbers and firepower still posed a deadly threat. A group of their ships managed to adapt, synchronizing their fire through the chaos. 2 trickster ships erupted in flames before their crews could evacuate. "They're learning," Diana grimaced. "Time for Phase 2. All ships, Initiate protocol battle. This was Sarah's masterstroke, a weapon that targeted the consortium's shared consciousness itself. The trickster ships began broadcasting quantum-encrypted signals designed to create feedback loops in the enemy's neural networks. The effect was immediate and devastating. The perfectly coordinated consortium fleet began to fragment as their shared consciousness experienced the electronic equivalent of cognitive dissonance. Ships began moving independently, their actions becoming erratic. "It's working," Sarah exclaimed. "Their neural network is cascading into chaos. They can't maintain their collective consciousness through the interference." Diana seized the moment. "All ships, attack pattern Delta. Target their command and control nodes." The trickster fleet struck like lightning, each ship choosing its own targets and tactics. Some created localized time dilation fields that trapped enemy vessels in moments of slowed time. Others generated quantum tunnels that redirected enemy weapons' fire back at their sources. The Coyote led a direct assault on the consortium flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the fallen Prometheus. Diana had studied the data from her brother's last battle, and she knew exactly where to strike. "Target their primary synchronization array," she ordered. "Maximum chaos field intensity." The Coyote's weapons, conventional arms augmented by spatial distortion technology, tore through the flagship's defenses. The massive ship's perfect symmetry began to break down as its command and control systems failed. Throughout the battlefield, more consortium ships began to falter. Without their shared consciousness to coordinate their actions, they were forced to fight as individuals, something they hadn't done in thousands of years. "They're retreating," O'Neill announced, unable to keep the amazement from his voice. "Multiple ships jumping to FTL. Their formation is completely broken." Diana watched as the mighty consortium fleet, which had arrived expecting an easy victory over a primitive species, fled in disarray. But she knew this wasn't the end. "All ships, maintain battle stations," she ordered. "They'll be back, and next time, they'll be ready for our tricks." Sarah's voice came through again, tired but triumphant. "Let them come. Every time they adapt, we'll show them something new. That's what humans do. We never stopped innovating." The battle had proved what humanity had hoped. Their greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons, but their ability to think creatively, to act unpredictably, and to turn their very chaos into a weapon. As the trickster fleet regrouped, tending to their wounded and repairing battle damage, Diana opened a channel to all ships. "Today, we showed the galaxy something important. They thought they could predict us, control us, contain us. But humanity doesn't work that way. We're not just another species to be cataloged and controlled. We're something they've never seen before." The crews cheered, their voices carrying across the void. They had won their first major victory, but more importantly, they had proved that humanity deserved its place among the stars. In her lab on Mars, Sarah Chen looked at the battle data scrolling across her screens. The consortium would return, probably with new tactics and technologies. But she wasn't worried. Humanity had found its edge. The perfect blend of technology and unpredictability that made them unique in the galaxy. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter as humanity's fleet stood guard over their solar system. They had turned the tide. But the war was far from over. The galaxy was about to learn that humans weren't just another species to be conquered. They were a force of nature as unpredictable and unstoppable as chaos itself. 1 year after the Battle of Jupiter, Earth's skyline had changed. Orbital defense platforms shared space with diplomatic vessels from a dozen alien civilizations, other restricted species who had been inspired by humanity's defiance of the consortium. In her new office aboard the International Space Station, Dr. Sarah Chen studied the latest reports from the galactic frontier. The consortium had withdrawn to their core systems, their absolute authority shattered by their defeat at human hands. But more importantly, their defeat had sparked a revolution in galactic society. "The Helios delegation is ready for you," announced Commander Diana Patel, now Earth's military liaison to the newly formed alliance of free species. She looked different in her diplomatic uniform, but her eyes still held the same determination that had helped win the war. Sarah nodded, taking a moment to gather her thoughts. The Helios, a species of energy beings who had been deemed too unstable for advanced technology by the consortium, had traveled 3,000 light years to meet the humans who had changed everything. The meeting chamber offered a spectacular view of Earth. Sarah couldn't help but remember standing in a similar room with her brother James, what felt like a lifetime ago. His sacrifice had helped make this new future possible. "Welcome to Earth," Sarah greeted the Helios delegation. Their luminescent forms shifted in patterns that their translators converted to speech. "We came to understand," the lead delegate communicated. "How did you defeat them? Your technology was inferior, your numbers smaller." Sarah smiled. "We didn't win because of technology. We won because we remained human. The consortium tried to impose order on a chaotic universe. We embraced the chaos. The changes in the galaxy had been profound. The consortium's defeat had revealed a fundamental flaw in their philosophy. Their pursuit of perfect order had made them brittle, unable to adapt to truly novel situations. Humanity's victory had proven that creativity and unpredictability were not weaknesses to be eliminated, but strengths to be cultivated. The trickster fleet, now expanded and improved, had become the backbone of Earth's defense forces. But they were no longer alone. Other species had begun developing their own unique approaches to space travel and combat, freed from the consortium's rigid guidelines. "Your victory has changed everything," the Helios delegate conveyed. "Species that were trapped in technological stasis for millennia are now advancing again. The galaxy is evolving." On one of the station's lower decks, a very different meeting was taking place. Captain Miguel Santos of the EDF Phoenix was giving a tour to a group of young cadets from Earth's new space academy. "The most important lesson from the war wasn't about weapons or tactics," he explained, showing them the ship's chaos drive. "It was about being human. Every species has something unique to offer. Our gift is our ability to think differently, to question everything, to find new solutions." The cadets, representing dozens of nations and colonies, embodied humanity's new unity. The consortium's attack had done what centuries of diplomacy couldn't. It had united Earth's people behind a common purpose. Back in her office, Sarah reviewed the latest scientific breakthrough. The combination of human creativity with alien technology had accelerated technological progress beyond anyone's expectations. But more importantly, it had been done in a uniquely human way. Messy, unpredictable, but undeniably effective. "We've received another request for assistance," Diana reported. "The Proxima Collective wants our help developing their own version of the Chaos Drive." Sarah nodded. This was how it should be, species helping each other, each contributing their unique perspectives and abilities. "Send them everything we have. The age of restricted technology is over." The Mars artifact, which had started everything, had been transformed into a museum. Its original purpose, to test whether species could think creatively enough to use advanced technology in new ways, had been fulfilled. Humanity had passed the test, but not in the way the consortium had expected. An alert flashed on Sarah's display. Long-range sensors had detected unusual activity at the edge of chartered space. But unlike a year ago, Earth didn't face these mysteries alone. Within hours, ships from 3 different Alliance species had offered to join the human expedition to investigate. "James would have loved to see this," Sarah said softly, touching the commander's insignia she still wore in his memory. Diana placed a hand on her friend's shoulder, understanding the mix of pride and loss in her voice. "He saw it coming," Diana replied. "That's why he gave everything to buy us time. He knew humanity had something special to offer the galaxy." Outside the station's windows, Earth continued its eternal dance around the sun. But it was no longer just a pale blue dot in an indifferent cosmos. It was the home of a species that had proved itself worthy of the stars, not through conquest or technological superiority, but through the very traits that made them human. As Sarah prepared for another day of meetings with alien delegates and human leaders, she reflected on how far they had come. The consortium had tried to contain humanity, to force them into a predetermined path of development. Instead, they had unleashed something they couldn't control, the human spirit of innovation and adventure. The galaxy was changing, becoming more diverse, more dynamic, more alive with possibilities. And humanity, the species that had dared to break the rules, was helping to lead the way into this new era. Not as conquerors or controllers, but as pioneers and partners in the greatest adventure in human history. The stars had once seemed like an impossible dream. Now they were highways, filled with ships and species working together to build something new. And at the heart of it all was the lesson humanity had taught the galaxy, that true strength lies not in perfect order, but in the beautiful unpredictability of life itself.